In northern Wisconsin, there's a line, a range, if you will, of hills called the Penokees. They're part of a geologic formation called the Gogebic Formation. Gogebic. The Gogebic Formation. The Gogebic Formation has this crappy mineral-bearing ore in it called taconite. The ore itself is iron ore. It is of low quality and not high percentage. Well, if there's anything low to be gotten at out there, we've got just the guy for it. His name is Chris Klein. I pass his house just about every time I drive into Beckley. As you come in on 119 toward the toll booth for entry onto the West Virginia Turnpike, there is this vast estate on your right. And tucked up in the corner on the hillside is a freaking mansion of almost unbelievable size, with a lake in front, a man-made lake, and white picket fences all the way around the property. That's Chris Klein's place. Really. He is a billionaire. Like so many billionaires, he's a billionaire who was handed his wealth by his daddy. What we like to think of is that syndrome whereby one may be born on third, thinking one has just hit a triple. He has created wreckage and destruction in, for instance, West Virginia. He has also created wreckage and destruction in southern Illinois and wants to expand out of coal and into iron ore. And so it is that he set his sights on this this formation in northern Wisconsin called the Penokee Hills. And he got the governor of Wisconsin, a guy named Scott Walker, you know it, you remember it, to play step and fetch it on, and the entire Republican side of the Wisconsin legislature to play step and fetch it on a rewrite of the environmental laws, which are among the strongest in the nation, so that he could go in and blow the bejesus out of the Penokee Hills to get at this iron ore. That is Chris Klein. I just went over onto Google Earth, and I'm having a look at his place right now. If you want to look at Google Earth, go to search for, and you can see this vast estate, and I'm not kidding, it's vast. Search Prosperity, West Virginia, and look for the intersection of US 19 and I-77 near Beckley. Go back up toward the interchange just a little ways. You'll see the big lake right by the highway. And then you can start zooming in on the Klein estate, because it is monstrous. This is the same guy who owns a boat that he rents out, a yacht, a massive yacht, called Mine, M-I-N-E, Games, G-A-M-E-S. It's his actions and those of GTAC, Gogebic Taconite, his company, that we will be discussing this evening. And we will have that discussion just as quickly as Mike dials in, which should be any moment now. Mike Wiggins, tribal chair of the Bad River Band of Ojibwe people. Sorry if I'm a little flat. I'm trying to crank up as much energy as I humanly possibly can. I very well may have punted this evening, but for the fact that I wanted to make sure we get Mike on the air to tell the story of what's going on up there, because it is disturbing, to say the least, frightening, even. Anti-American, you could say. Possibly illegal. You see, there are any number of possibilities. I think Mike may be dialing in now. Hi, Mike. Do we have you?
Yeah. Hi, Bob.
Hey, good to talk to you, Mike. I've been telling everybody to, a little bit of background, just reminding them what you all have been up against there in northern Wisconsin. So I think everybody's pretty much up to speed. They've started the steps toward the test drilling there in the Penokees. Is that correct?
Yeah, they're doing exploratory drilling. I think there's 8 borehole drillings that they are in the process of implementing.
And this is of course preliminary to trying to go ahead and start using the high explosives to destroy the Penokee Hills and poison the watershed of the Bad River and the Tyler Forks River, that entire magnificent area.
Absolutely, yeah. The hills and the mountains are, as we've talked before, are absolutely pristine. Whitewater rapids, rocks, Class A trout streams, unbelievable area. The exploratory drilling, is actually a bit of a sham because they have over 250 core samples from those hills that they have proprietary interest over. What comes next is bulk sampling, which isn't quite getting into the mining permitting process yet, but it's darn close. That would allow them to take up to 10 tons of fill and overburden to study. And, the environmental impact from that excavation in such a pristine blue-watered area is very, very disturbing.
I would say it's an absolute threat to the way that the Bad River Band of the Ojibwe people have conducted their lifeways for generation upon generations, is it not?
Absolutely. From a surface water standpoint, the waters from that particular mining footprint flow directly into our small tribal homeland. When you look at the heavy metals and other toxicity, the pyritic shale that's in the mountain and in the hills that would produce sulfuric acid drainage. From a surface water standpoint, it's just unbelievably tragic to even think about. From a groundwater drinking water standpoint, it's an absolute travesty to think about. A USGS study has shown that the Penokee Mountains there are actually the recharge station for the groundwater aquifers underneath our small tribal homeland, and really groundwaters that probably stretch into other portions of Ashland County and affect other communities that are non-tribal. When you look at the surface water and the groundwater ramifications, and you think about toxicity, you think about the drawdown of the water table, private wells going dry, sulfuric acid drainage considerations, it just it's unbelievably compelling to oppose and stop this stuff from happening. And as you know, and you've been such a wonderful speaker up in our neck of the woods, telling a story of what extractive industry has done to communities, from West Virginia and everything else. We can't let them in the ground. We're opposed to having them apologize and disappear like a puff of smoke later.
Right, because they may be gone, but their mess won't be, and your world will never be the same.
No, yeah, that's the thing. We're dealing with perpetuity and 7 generations and hundreds and hundreds of years of environmental impacts that are going to hurt our people, hurt our ecosystems, and their little limited liability company disappears like a puff of smoke along with any recourse. And, you know as well as I do, once you obliterate and explode the headwaters of a watershed, it's not like man understands how to recreate, the genesis of a watershed system.
Oh, no, by no stretch of the imagination. In fact, I remember Margaret Palmer from the University of Maryland, Mike. Once I asked her just straightforward how long it would be before a mountaintop removal site could ever be considered a viable part of an ecosystem again. And she said, and she answered equally forthrightly, 100,000 years. How many generations is 100,000 years, Mike?
That's unbelievable, and like we're so kind of acutely aware, the type of destruction that these types of projects represent to waterways, to ecosystems, to drinking water. It's in the context of climate change. It's in the context of dwindling water resources nationwide, and drought, and predictions that the environment from a climatic perspective is only going to get more and more difficult to try and adapt to, including, as we all know, very significant extreme weather patterns. And so when you look at the context, big picture, in the maybe 10 to 15 years of operation that they would try to get out of a particular mining project, and really from a bigger picture perspective, the minutia that a few jobs would represent, and compared to the environmental carnage that they bring and the lasting detrimental effects to communities, when you look at that equation, those lasting detrimental effects in the context of climate change and what's coming at us, it just seems like we should be preparing and preserving some of these unbelievably pristine systems that are vital to Lake Superior, vital to the people and the flora and fauna. We should be preserving and recognizing the value of these things in real time, so that 50 to 100 years from now, which is actually a short-term kind of vision, when climate change ends up manifesting itself the way some of the scientists are predicting, we have places that are working for us and places that are going to be desirable to come to, whether that be from people visiting, studying the natural resource wealth, tourist-based economy, or just, coming to enjoy good, clean water. We should be recognizing the value of these places in real time, not fighting for our lives and fighting to prevent people from exploding these areas.
Some, I suppose, had thought that the era of the federal government and, for lack of a better term, white America encroaching upon what is left of Native people's lands was over. But this whole thing proves that no, it never ended. If there's something somebody wants, they will come after it. I have a question coming in to you, Mike, from Dr. John, a good friend of the program. He said, could you ask Chairman Wiggins if there is any chance that the Bad River people could appeal to the state to slow or stop the mining based on damage to culturally affiliated land in the Penokees? I'd assume part of the permitting process includes cultural resource surveys. Does Chairman Wiggins know if that's been done, by whom, and if they have access to the report? Dr. John asks this because he is he's a historical archaeologist, and I think that's the perspective he's coming at the question from.
Yeah, I can't remember the specific language, but the new Wisconsin mining law that was essentially written by the mining company at a state level did away with a lot of the safeguards that were usually associated for archaeological significant areas. It's really sad when you look at the law and how they stripped away not only environmental protections but some of the protections that were associated with kind of sacred sites. To appeal to the state, I can't see, unless there's a change in administration and some significant change in the makeup of the legislature, I don't see in trying that. However, our tribe is not without some, mechanisms of defense, and we have federally delegated authority under the Clean Water Act through the EPA and the Army Corps of Engineers to enforce our own water quality standards that we have set. We're on the cusp of having our Class 1 air quality designation. Those federally delegated authorities put us at the table eye to eye with the state of Wisconsin by utilizing federal law. And those federal mechanisms, from a permitting standpoint, are we plan on working those to be autonomous of and free of some of the compacted timelines that the state of Wisconsin gave the mining company to, permit their mine.
This new law was, it is shocking the degree to which it is a roughshod rewrite of everything, because as I noted to the Horn group here, Wisconsin had some of the best environmental laws in the state, and every last bit of that was gutted and scrapped and thrown away, was it not?
Yeah, it was really, really gutted. There's provisions in there where if the DNR fails to respond in a really tight timeline to some of the mining companies' applications, they're automatically approved. And so when you look at the automatic rubber stamp approval combined with the paring down of administrative staff at the state DNR level to adequately review and put integrity into the evaluation of some of the mining company activities, it's scary stuff. And we'll be wielding the federal side of things as much as we possibly can to protect ourselves and ultimately to do the right thing in a permitting process where a mining company could really, really hurt communities that are downwind and downstream.
Well, I certainly hope you get both your Clean Air Act and Clean Water Act certifications because, just a tale from West Virginia, Mike. If you go to the EPA's air quality monitoring website, you'll find that there are air monitoring stations all over the United States. Curiously enough, there is not one single air monitoring unit anywhere near any mountaintop removal operation. And, that's central to being able to talk about what's being put into the air above an operation like this. I wanted to make sure that we fleshed out the reality as it exists before we went into what's going on presently. Mm-hmm. In the last few months, a harvest camp has been established in the Penokee Hills in conjunction with the Lac Courte people. Do I have that right?
Yeah, that would be accurate.
And so you've got folks who are who are living the life ways there in the Penokees. They've put in a camp. It's permanently occupied, and people come in and out. And in response to that, it turns out, I was shocked, Mike. I was shocked this morning. I monitor the citizens concerned about the proposed Penokee mine page on Facebook. Yeah. Because I find the commitment and the determination so deeply inspiring. And I go on there this morning and I see this photograph that looks like we would expect it to be from the 1980s in El Salvador of some guy with an assault rifle in full camo with a black face mask on his head and a boonie hat standing amongst a bunch of forest background. And I just about fell out. That's a guy in the Penokee Hills that has been brought in by GTAC. They've brought in a cadre of these armed, and we call them here in Appalachia gun thugs. Is that pretty much it?
Absolutely. GTAC hired a private security firm that is essentially a military style security force. The picture that you described is essentially, a picture of what appears to be like a special forces kind of soldier standing there in the hills of the Penokees. And excuse me, the fact that they're brandishing machine guns and in the context of what has really been an overwhelmingly peaceful resistance is just an absolute travesty, and it really tipped the hand of the callous disregard of the mining company for local inhabitants, local people.
How long have they been there, Mike?
I believe they just showed up just recently. I think last weekend, or within the last 3-4 days. Some of the peaceful hikers that were monitoring some of the exploratory drilling ran into them and then took their photograph, and it since went viral. We have a couple of Madison, Wisconsin legislators who represent our area, Senator Bob Jelk and Representative Janet Bewley, who have formally called on the mining company to withdraw that military-style security force and get those machine guns out of the hills there. These are publicly accessible lands, and come fall, there's probably going to be hunting and everything else, citizens carrying rifles to harvest food. And when you think of, ex-military-style commandos patrolling with machine guns, it just creates, an ugly scenario, and ugly potential for some type of escalation of, violence, I guess you'd say. And
it should be understood, this is not this is not a homegrown paramilitary. These guys are not from Wisconsin, are they?
No, this is a professional firm. It's Bulletproof Security out of, I think, Arizona, and highly specialized training, military-style equipment. They have light tactical vehicles. They have winter vehicles, armored vehicles. Their gear, like I said before, is essentially in the style of a Special Forces operative, and, machine gun, Glock on the hip, bladed weapons and everything else, and then, of course, full camo with face masks and all that. It's I gotta say, what it's done is to a certain extent allowed our local area to play right into the hand of GTAC. It forced a lot of discussion around the notion of how people treat other people. And the mining company would love to keep us talking about that. A mining company would love to keep us talking about how people treat people, or how people could treat people. What a mining company does not want, obviously, is us to talk about what a mining company is going to do to our environment. And so there's some psychological warfare here in terms of diversion. And then there's also that attempt to create terror. What's been happening here locally is really just a steadily growing awareness and resistance and understanding of how precious our resources are here in our particular area, and what we stand to lose with this atrocity of a mine. As that resistance has grown steadily, GTAC understands that they got to try something unconventional to squelch, the passion that's being displayed here. And machine guns in the hills is an attempt to try and scare away and stifle what has been a growing, passionate legion of people that oppose that mine.
Well, I have remarked to you in the past, Mike, that it seems like every next step that I see GTAC taking looks like they're working out of a handbook from 100 years ago here in West Virginia. They don't, this is exactly what they did 100 years ago in West Virginia. They brought in they didn't have catchy names like Bulletproof Security back then. They just called themselves the Baldwin Felts Detective Agency, and in the annals of the lore of this region, they are referred to in short as Baldwin Thugs. And they came in and they terrorized. We know here, I mean, There are not a whole lot of people alive anymore, but who witnessed it personally. But their children and their grandchildren are still alive, who can tell the story of a train that was called the Bull Moose Special, that was run up. Run up Paint Creek here in Fayette County, with an armored railroad car on it, out of which they stuck field-grade machine guns and machine gunned an entire village of miners who were trying to withhold their labor. And then, of course, there's the armed march on Logan, when the federal government came in and used, for the first time, aircraft to bomb their own citizens. The massacre at Matewan and was a precursor to that. And then it got to the point where one of the local law enforcement officials, who had stood up for some of the oppressed, was gunned down by these Baldwin Felts agents on the steps of the McDowell County, West Virginia courthouse. I see this stuff, and having been up there to that magnificent, wonderful part of the world you live in a couple of times, I don't want to see that happen. But I don't know. To be quite honest, Mike, I don't know if the people running the GTAC end of things know anything else but force. And it certainly looks like they're running down that road.
Yeah, it's pretty sad. And my take on it is, if GTAC was going for terror, they missed their mark. They missed their mark with those machine guns in the hills, because what GTAC represents, and when they showed up on the Wisconsin scene and came to the headwaters of our homeland with their plans to explode and obliterate the headwaters of, our waterways and our groundwater aquifers, they maximized and reached their full potential of terror right there. When you think about what they really want to do to our ecosystem and the impact that will ultimately have on our tribe and our home, machine guns in the hills is nothing. That's a blip of a butterfly's wings, really, because what they plan on doing to the water resources, what they plan on doing to those hills and that unbelievably pristine, beautiful clear water area is the height of terror. And having, I guess, grown a little desensitized to the shadow of what GTAC wants to do there in the Penokees, those armed mercenaries in the hills, for a lot of the tribal members that I've talked to around here, don't mean nothing. Just furthers the resolve to oppose, resist, and protect their home.
Well, let me, and I think that's the only way to approach this. It's something that, it's the reason that young people marched literally into the teeth of dogs and fire hoses in Birmingham 50 years ago, and why Gandhi did what he did. You can't respond with violence to violence. You're right. They've played their hardest card when they said that they're going to make the place that you live unlivable for you. Everything else is window dressing. Yet I have to ask, because there are things that just when I started reading more about this, these are people carrying semi-automatic. I mean, they are a paramilitary force. They are under the hire of GTAC. How in heaven's name is that legal?
Yeah, I'm not sure exact. I mean, there's open carry laws in terms of the weaponry. They don't have the legal ability to detain or anything like that. And when you think about what they don't have for jurisdiction over the citizens of Wisconsin, and the potential that exists with these eager, I guess, military-style folks to exert some jurisdictional authority, the potential for bad things is just, has just been escalated by the mining company. They had a security force that was adequate. I mean, for the most part, it's a witness approach to opposition. I mean, people are going to the drilling site, they're taking photos, it's public access. There's nothing they're doing against the law. It's taking photos, recording, and really bearing witness to what GTAC does, and as a byproduct of that, making the company even more acutely aware that they have to be accountable. To bring in a paramilitary style security force brandishing machine guns is an unbelievably unjustified overreaction that really smacks of disrespect to, like I said before, the people who call this place home.
Well, the other thing that I find, and I realize these are detailed questions, Mike, but I saw one photograph of a guy standing in the woods, and he was masked. Many states, if not most, many states at one time or another had what were called, and we still have one in this state, anti-masking ordinances and statutes on the books that say that you can't get together a group of people and put on a mask and go do whatever it is you're going to do. A lot of those things in southern states were related to the rise of the Klan in the post-Civil War era. Some of it was related to the fact that, upset oppressed people here in Appalachia would put a red bandana over their faces and around their necks, and hence the origin of the term redneck. But do you know, or can anybody look around and see if there's an anti-masking statute out there? Because it's those masks that lend an especially offensive, I guess is the word I'm looking for, quality to all this. It's not just that they've got machine guns; they've got machine guns, and they are masking themselves from anybody finding out, or trying to mask themselves from anybody finding out who they are.
I think you made a really good point that I haven't really considered that much. When you look at the mask, the anonymity that kind of allows an individual to keep is actually a scary thing when you think about the fact that they're all geared up with weaponry, and if something did happen that was unjustified and obviously illegal, the fact that they're hiding their identity and making themselves unidentifiable is very disturbing. And I guess I hadn't really thought about that, but that's something that I'm going to look into. The thing that I watched a lot of our citizenry, both tribal and non-tribal, deal with was the reality that the mining company brought these people and had them carry their machine guns for a reason. And when you think about machine guns patrolling publicly accessible forests in some of these beautiful areas, that reality of there are machine guns there. The only purpose they serve is to obviously unleash a bullet and bring harm to somebody. When that reality that these people are geared to cause harm to locals and to people who just want to be out in these beautiful areas hit home, it was amazing to see the reaction of stunned disbelief, of sadness, of rage that people experienced. And from the mask to the machine guns to the camouflage to the absurdity of it all, it really hit a lot of people very hard in a tragic way.
Well, and that goes back to something that back in my December trip, it goes back to a conversation that I had with Pete Rasmussen, in that I said to him that I think Wisconsin, and especially that area of Wisconsin, but other areas as well, is a rather unique place within the overall panoply of the United States, in that there's still a modicum of civility left up there. It's taken a real beating during the Scott Walker era, but do you think that the shock of this will make anybody who has been formerly supportive of the blasting and demolishing and poisoning of that area think twice about their support?
Yes, I do. I think it's going to affect people that are sitting on the fence. People that have been paying attention and kind of just evaluating both sides can obviously see where the mining companies, at in terms of how they treat local communities. But even more interesting is the media bounce. What has been previously almost complicit media covering stories that are angled to favor and benefit the mining company and promote, extractive industry. There's a huge bounce right now that is occurring as the stories of these military operatives in the hills goes viral. Watching some of the photos that were taken by just citizens, in the hills, go viral onto AP news feeds and into some of the local news channel, stories, and then go even further out into, some of the blogs that are nationwide. There's an awakening going on, and I don't think the media can even ignore it. That this is a travesty and deserves to be discussed.
Well, and I mean there are things that I think people are still thinking about that make this even worse than it appears. Most of these mercenaries, and I'll use that word, I have no problem with it. Most of these mercenaries are, of course, military veterans.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have served honorably in the military, but we also know that in the wake of the Iraq War and Afghanistan, that we have a lot of veterans coming back with profound post-traumatic stress disorder problems. And to think that it only takes one person, and to think that just anybody with those problems might be among those wandering armed to the teeth in the Penokees, it's deeply disturbing to me, Mike. It's just deeply disturbing.
Yeah, it's scary. I mean, in our tribal community, one of the, we honor our elders. We work hard to try and take care of our kids. There's another special place of honor reserved for our veterans and for all that they do for, for us back here at home and what they endure in some of those scenarios and places that they serve. What they endure does affect them, and that's sad. The fact that there might be a young person who's having some troubles because of what he's seen or done in the past as he's served honorably is scary, and because this is America, and Wisconsin isn't a third world country. This is the breadbasket of the United States, where people take care of each other, where people hunt and fish and live close to the land and work hard every day to try and take care of their families. To see, camouflage machine gun toting men in some of these beautiful places like that is really unnerving. And the fact that there might be some there that could still be having some troubles with what they've endured while serving is definitely scary.
Well, while I had the privilege of being there at the Bad River Lodge, I made a special point of taking time to walk down that long hallway with all of those photos of Bad River people who have served in the United States military, and frankly, it gave me a chill, Mike, because those are people who, in one way or another, put everything on the line for a nation that ever so many times has not proven up to the task of doing right by them, but they went, and they went honorably, and they went nobly, and they went, and so I understand why there would be a profound sense of reverence and honor for those who have done service in the military, who come from your area, and it is a profound, to my way of thinking at least, a profound slap in the face to every one of those people to have these paramilitary types wandering in the woods that Bad River people, directly or indirectly, have already fought to preserve and protect and save.
Absolutely. It's, I had this thought, a couple weeks ago. When you think about our armed forces, and all those honorable young people and others that are serving right now overseas and giving their all, they're not doing that for Monsanto to profit. They're not doing that so that GTAC can hire, military-style security and scheme harder about blowing up beautiful places. They're there fighting for the rights of other human beings, not corporations. And what's taking place, what took place here in Wisconsin was you have legislators that were at the beck and call of corporations and industry rather than truly representing, the human beings that are here in the state. And I think that's exemplified with Senator Jelk and Representative Janet Bewley calling on that mining company to withdraw that security firm, while others who have seemed to represent corporate interests are screaming even louder with their silence.
Has there been any response, Mike, from GTAC to Senator Jelk's call for removal?
No. Last indications I heard from both of them is that there has been no response at all.
Well, when I saw the region, it was in cold times. The height of life and regeneration and the bearing of the foods and gifts of the land is well underway up there right now. I imagine there are things even with armed private army in the woods. There are things that Bad River people will be doing right now or doing very soon that are a continuation of lifeways that have literally gone on generations unnumbered. Tell me, Mike, when does the rice harvest take place?
Yeah, the rice harvest will be taking place in mid-August through September, and right now they're harvesting birch bark off of some of the trees in the Penokee area there. They're making birch bark baskets, and they're going to be berry picking, and they've been gardening and everything up there in the hills. It's been a beautiful thing to really see and take part in. There's traditional ceremonies and prayers being put up, constantly to help us with these matters, and these are all things that represent us just living our life, and we're going to do that regardless of machine guns, regardless of the plans of GTAC to explode these areas. We're going to use the good life that we live as Northlanders here in Wisconsin to oppose and resist this stuff. And there's power in that. There's power in harvesting and going after food and taking care of each other, with some of the gifts that our natural resource and our ecosystems provide. So wild rice will start in August and September, and from the hunting and berry picking and all that stuff will be in play. And and of course the fishing is always phenomenal. And in spite of the mercury advisories, the fishing is always good, and there's people doing that too.
Well, you're beginning to make my mouth water, but in many ways you're absolutely right. That is the best defense. Doing what you've been successful at doing for the generations, and continuing to do it, and not letting yourselves be intimidated. Mike Wiggins, if there is anything that I can do to help, I'm always here to be called upon. I remain deeply moved by my time up there, and deeply inspired. And I trust that the inspiration and the inspirational activities will continue as you and ever so many others defend that brilliant, magnificent piece of life on Earth. And I just wish you well, and I hope nonviolence takes many forms. It can be a sit-in, it can be a protest, it can be a tree sit. But it can also be the things that we do in the courts. And I hope you are successful in all of them, and especially successful in going forward and not letting these people take away what is ancient and good and decent.
Well, I appreciate that, Bob. And I've said recently, these are the times where open-hearted people need to bar the gates open. We need to keep our open hearts and work to keep them even more open than they used to be, because there's divide and conquer tactics. There's efforts to turn communities against each other. And you know what? All of us up here in this area, just like all of the people in your neck of the woods, we're home. We're neighbors, and we're going to be here long after these LLC companies go poof and disappear. And we want a good life. We want a good life for our kids, and looking 7 generations forward, and keeping an open heart is one of the best ways to combat this stuff.
I believe in the rightness of what you say, and frankly, I've said before, and I will say again, that Chris Klein and his cronies have no idea whatsoever of the people and the powers and the forces that they're fooling with. And I think with a statement like that, bar the gates open, I think you prove it, Mike. So keep us posted, and anything, like I said, anything I can do to help, I will. And I hope you get an opportunity to take this conversation beyond the good folks at Wisconsin Public Radio and beyond our little family here at the Horn, and maybe get a call from somebody who will help you get the story out on a national basis, because this deserves to be national. If there is a private army marching around in the woods of northern Wisconsin, there is not one single American citizen who can say, well, it could never happen here.
Exactly. Well, thanks so much, Bob.
Mike, you have a great evening, and thanks so much for giving me so much of your time. I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate it. So everybody out there, take care. Thank you.
Be well. Bye now.
Bye.
Mike Wiggins, tribal chairman of the Bad River Band of Ojibwe people. And that last is the absolute truth. If you can look at what's happening in northern Wisconsin and say, yeah, well, that's them, but not us. Badly deluded. Badly deluded. Because well, changes of any sort never happen, or seldom happen, on a massive scale. They happen one thing at a time, little erosions. And, frankly, we talk about reaching out and communicating with your elected representatives in Washington. This is one of those moments. This isn't about Wisconsin law. Okay? The paramilitary units are on the ground in the Penokee Hills, not because there's a law in Wisconsin that says they can do it. They are acting as a law unto themselves. And they can do it just about anywhere they want to. You know how loath I am to tell anybody that they ought to do this or do that. But this is a moment, and a profound one, when silence comes close to being complicity. Now, I'm not climbing up on the cross because I know we all need the wood, but it's why I'm sitting here in this chair with sweat pouring off of me and muting the mic every 15 seconds to barf up a lung. I'm no martyr, but this story has to be told. This story needs a little bit of the time that is being dedicated to George Zimmerman or Paula Deen or Kim Kardashian or all the myriad things that eat up our existence. I've seen the Penokee Hills. I've walked among the Penokee Hills. I've talked to people who live within a half a mile of where the toxic blasting will come down. And if I cannot speak, if we cannot speak on their behalf, how in God's name can we expect anyone to be there when it's us? And I say that because I live in an it's-us region of the country. And we know what it is to be quietly ignored while we're poisoned and die. We don't suspect it. We know it. And those of us knowing that refuse, absolutely refuse to be complicit in silence when some sick-ass hillbilly, Chris Klein, goes looking to take his poisoning road show to a place that neither needs it, nor wants it, nor, God knows, deserves it. It's about 16 minutes past the hour. We'll take a little break. And I'm going to drink a bottle of ice-cold water. Thanks going out this evening to Patrick, to Tamara, and to Sal. We are now only $330 away from our fundraising goal for this evening. I'll never draw a line between point A and point B on this kind of thing, but you are the ones who make it possible to shine a light that nobody else will shine on subjects that nobody else will shine the light on. I don't know. Maybe you'll turn on Chris Hayes tonight, and maybe Mike will be in a studio somewhere talking to that audience. Maybe he'll be on CNN. Maybe somebody in the for-profit media will notice this. But we, by God, all of us, you, me, will do our part. So like I said, a break, and then we come back. This is Conversation Radio. I'm Bob Kincaid. This is The Horn.